Hi, I'm Emilio Rivas, and we're here to help you.
Hi, my name is Samantha, co-host of Surviving the Intimate.
Hi, my name is Brandon with Surviving the Intimate, here to help everybody in the LGBTQ community.
Hi, my name is Amy. I'm with Surviving the Intimate, and we're here for you.
Hi, I'm Don Foster, founder of Angel Eyes Foundation, creator of Surviving the Intimate. My job is to do the rescues. The rest of the team, their job is to help document or share the information.
Today we're out here on location with Brandy Reese Sloan and the rest of our team, which is our president, Amy Foster, vice president, Samantha,
Brandon.
But we're out here today to talk about Brandy's story. Not a story, a testimony. Let me correct that. Brandy has a very real testimony to tell us, and it started right here back in 2010, right? Mm-hmm. And at one point on, was it August?
August 23rd.
August 23rd, this whole street was full of first responders. And we'll get more into her testimony here in a little while. But if you would, Brandy, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, I'm Brandy. The man that I was in a relationship with at the time, he was emotionally abusive, he was physically abusive for a long time, and I finally had enough, and I said, this is it, I'm leaving, I'm moving out. And he responded by punching me in the face and breaking my nose.
So it is the truth. It is the deadliest time in a victim's life is the moment they begin to decide that they're going to be a survivor and leave, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And how close did you come to losing your life that night?
Very, very close. He beat me nearly to death that night.
And he not only used his hands, but he used
an aluminum baseball bat
that he actually bent from hitting you so many times and so hard, right?
Yes. And after he hit me with the bat, he climbed on top of me and strangled me over and over and over again.
And now you're back to teaching again, correct?
Yes.
And one of the things that really paralyzed me about your whole testimony was the fact of the one thing he did was he tried to take your ability to play away, right?
Yes, he crushed both of my hands.
So that's going to be it for right now on location. We're going to go back to the studio where Brandy, Amy, Samantha, and Brandon are all going to share as survivors. They're going to have a roundtable discussion to talk about the way the system sometimes works, but in the majority of the time the system does fall short on helping victims and families. So we'll go back to the studio and we'll be back with you shortly. Here we are in Brandy's new studio, and this is the one thing that your abuser tried to take away from you, right?
Yes, he tried to take the music away from me. He crushed my hands so I couldn't play.
With a ball bat, right?
With an aluminum bat, yes.
And Brandy has fought back very hard to get to where she's at today. And again, the reason we're doing this is because we want everyone to know there is hope. Hope is the most dangerous thing there is to an abuser, because that's the first thing they try and take away from you is your hope, right?
Yeah.
They try to isolate you. They make you feel like you're useless. They make you feel like nobody wants you. They make you feel like there's no one else out there. Well, we're out there. And I'm sorry that we weren't around when Brandy was going through her situation, but Brandy found the strength inside of herself to get this far. And now, with her testimony, being able to share this, we want to inspire other young people to listen and to learn before they become an abuser, before they become a lifelong victim. And in Brandy's case, she has survived it, and she has done the one thing most don't do. Most victims do become abusers because it is a pass it on down the line thing. They become so defensive and so guarded that they become an abuser themselves without even realizing. So I'm here today to say how proud I am of Brandy and the fact that she is now she's now able to play the piano again. She's able to teach. And I look forward to everyone getting to hear this wonderful testimony. It starts out scary, but it has a perfect ending. It's a fairy tale ending, isn't it?
I think so.
So with that being said, we'll turn this over to Amy, Samantha, and Brandon.
Hi, my name is Amy with Surviving the Intimate. I'm here with my co-hosts today, Samantha Keith and Brandon Tristan, and we're here with Brandy Reese Sloan today. We're going to talk about Brandy's testimony and her experience with domestic violence and her experiences with the system and how the system failed her and how the system helped her. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you.
Great. Samantha, I'm going to go ahead and let you take off with Brandy, and let's talk a little bit about her experiences.
Okay, Brandy, I'd like to know, how did you meet your abuser?
I was out with friends. We were out having a drink, and when I saw him across the room, started talking, and we started dating after that.
Had you been in an abusive relationship prior to this?
Several, yes.
Okay.
Was it kind of like being in a trance when you met him? Like it was something that, like at first sight, it was just something you knew, like he was the one.
Yeah, it was really strange because having come from abusive relationships before, he was like a breath of fresh air. He was so charming, he was so nice, he was so loving, and I was like, oh, finally someone who's going to treat me right. And it was great for a while until it wasn't.
And Brandy, when did you see that change? How long into the relationship before you saw that change?
It was probably weeks into it. Definitely after we moved in together, things just changed immediately. Just one day, we were wonderful, and then we moved in together, and then it was like that week, things started going different.
Did you ever think that would come to that point, or that he would be that person?
I never in a million years thought that it would come to what it came to.
Yeah.
Can you tell me maybe what was the first kind of red flag that you noticed after you moved in together?
He started having all these comments about what I was wearing. He didn't like any of my friends. He would call my phone like every 5 minutes if I wasn't, where are you going? What are you doing? Why aren't you here? And I was like, what is this? Why are we doing this? And it just kind of snowballed from there.
And so once that started, how long before, say, he threw the first punch?
Punches weren't thrown for a long time, not until the final incident, but there was a lot of grabbing, there was a lot of holding me down, there was a lot of not letting me get out of the room, those types of things. I had actually left at one point. I was like, okay, well, I'm leaving. I packed a bag, got in the car. He's standing behind the car, not letting me move. I remember having to do some fancy car maneuvering just to get out of the parking space and leave. I was gone for a week, and during that week he's calling every single day crying, what do I need to do? I'll change, I love
That's always the famous last words, I'm gonna change.
I'll do anything, just come back to me, I'm so sorry. And this is someone that I loved, so, I believed him. He was like, just give me another chance, I promise it'll be different. And so I was like, okay, let's try this again, because I didn't have anywhere to go, I didn't know what I was gonna do. I couldn't crash at my friend's couch, forever, so I was like, okay, well, let me go back home. And he was good for about 5 days, and then things started happening again. And then I said, okay, well, you're not changing, this is it, I'm leaving, and he tried to kill me.
So when would you say that it really took a toll? In what perspective would you say your mental health was when you started the relationship and at the end?
When I started the relationship, I think I just wanted someone to love me. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants someone to love and to be with, and then when things started going wrong, I thought it was me. I was like, well, if I could just change, if I could just be what he wants, and then it just became, well, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? He's isolated me from everybody. No one's going to want me. No one's going to, want to deal with this. And, I felt trapped.
So what would you say is your main reason for staying and not leaving? I know a lot of women, there's financial reasons, there's different reasons. What was
There
yours?
were a lot of it was just not having anywhere to land, not thinking that I had any options.
You knew there would be nobody there to catch you when you fell.
I didn't have a job. I didn't have anywhere to live. He had taken all the money. I didn't have any money in the bank. I was completely dependent on him. I didn't know where I was going to go.
And what about your family?
My family was there, but nobody wants to go to their family and say, well, this didn't work out. Can I come home? Nobody.
So your
wants to.
family didn't know what was going on?
My
or they
family
did?
had no idea until they came to the emergency room that night that anything was wrong.
So you said he was really verbally abusive, correct?
Yes.
I know in my particular relationship, there was a lot of key phrases that I heard throughout the years, one of which was, "No one will love you but me."
Yep.
And so I'm just curious, what are some of the main key phrases that you remember hearing over and over throughout the years?
No one's gonna want you. No one's gonna believe you. You're just crazy. That didn't
I
happen.
heard crazy a lot. You're just crazy.
I'm not even doing anything to you. You think you'll have it better somewhere else. Just stuff like that.
Okay.
Did you ever feel sorry for him?
I felt sorry for him afterwards. After I had a lot of counseling and got a lot of help and kind of got on the other side of it, after I processed being angry at him, after I processed being so resentful of him, and I got to that point of forgiveness, I was like, I pity this person so much.
Yeah.
That they could think that it was okay to do this to someone.
At what point in your relationship, if there was one, before the night that he tried to kill you, did you ever realize, hey, I'm in an abusive relationship? Was there anything, or was it not until that night?
I didn't want to call it that. I was in a lot of denial about that until I was sitting there talking to detectives, and the words domestic violence started getting thrown around, and I was like, wow, yeah. And then you start thinking back, and you go through the timeline in your mind, and you're like, oh my gosh, yes, I was in an abusive relationship.
Maybe it's kind of hard to admit it to yourself.
Yeah.
And the night that you called the police, the night that he almost took your life, had you called the police prior to that? No. Not at all?
No.
Was that ever a thought?
Yes.
And why didn't you go through with it?
I was afraid of what would happen afterwards.
And you were afraid of him, or were you afraid of what the police may have done or
Both. Both.
Yeah, I know I was, as mad as I was at him, I didn't want him to go to jail.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do that to him.
Yeah.
Can you maybe walk us through a little bit of how that evening began, the night that he tried to kill you?
It was a regular night. He had a really big family. So the family was always over, family dinners, things like that. And he had a really huge problem with alcohol. And I remember he had gotten, it was the 32 pack of cans. And he wasn't the type of drunk that would just, get a beer. He couldn't just get a beer and drink it. He would get a beer and slam it, get another beer and slam it, get another beer and slam it. And he would drink that whole case in one night. And so he was blind drunk. And I knew that it was probably going to have some repercussions. And so I just wanted to go to bed. I went to bed and I laid down. 3 a.m, he's yanking me up out of bed by my hair. And, saying that I was cheating on him. And I was like, how am I going to cheat on you? You never let me out of your sight. And just accusing me of this, that, and the other. And I was like, you know what? Forget this. I'm out of here. I'm leaving. Just leave me alone. I don't want to see you anymore. And he balled up his fist and he punched me in the face. And my face explodes with blood. My nose was broken. And he hits me again. And then he picked up the bat, started hitting me with that. I don't remember how many times. I didn't even know my arms were broken for a long time until I went to go get the blood out of my eyes, and I see my arm is bent like that, and I was like, wow. But I couldn't feel it. I couldn't feel any of the pain. And then he got on top of me, he's sitting on my chest, and he's strangling me. And he's looking straight in my eyes, and they're just black, completely black. And then I think I passed out. And then he got off of me for a second, and then he saw me open my eyes, and he would do it again. At one point, he had me in the shower, and he's trying to wash all the blood off of me, but I was bleeding from everywhere. There was no washing it off. And then I'm on the floor, and at one point he left the room, and I see the phone. And I managed to get to the phone, and my fingers are all mangled, but I, managed to hit 911, and I couldn't hold the phone, so I just had it laying right here, and I'm praying that they can hear me. And I'm begging the dispatcher, I said, please send some help for me, please, I need an ambulance, please don't hang up. And then, I don't know how I got on the bed, but the next thing I know, I'm laying on the bed, and he's standing over me, and the phone is right by my head. And then the next thing I know, the cops are there. And EMS.
So he was still there.
He
when
was
the
still
police
there.
came.
He opened the door for the cops, like, they were neighbors or whatever. They rang the doorbell, and he's so drunk and out of it, he just opened the door and let him in. And, then they were doing everything they were doing.
And did they arrest him on site?
Yes. He was arrested that night. He didn't stay in for very long, but he was arrested that night.
Do you remember maybe what his bond was set at?
I don't remember the amount, but I know it only took him 2 days to bond out.
Do you remember what charges he
assault with serious bodily injury. I don't remember all of the charges, but they're all public record.
So when he bonded out, how did you feel about that? Because you were
I
fighting for
couldn't-
your life.
I couldn't believe it. I was still in ICU and dealing with the fact that I was mangled from head to toe. I had both my arms broken. I had a skull fracture. I was pregnant at the time. I had a miscarriage because of the beating. Dealing with all of that, and then trying to figure out, okay, I'm homeless now. I can't go back home. I don't even have my purse. When the hospital inventory, when they inventory all your belongings, they give it to you in a plastic bag. The only thing I had to my name at that point was a pair of ripped underwear that I was wearing when they brought me in. That was all I had to start my life with. Meanwhile, he bonds out after 2 days and just goes back home.
And did they issue you a protective order at that point, or did you have to?
I had to go back. So after I got out of the hospital, I had to go to the Family Justice Center. I had to go by myself. And I was sitting there having to explain yet again what he had done to me, and basically having to tell them why it was a good idea to give me an order of protection.
So I just want to understand this. You're mangled, you're in ICU, the police come, they arrest him on site, they know that he did it, but you did not get a protective order, you had to go to...
I had to go and get one.
Get one yourself.
Yeah, they issued a temporary one. I was at the military hospital, so they're very good about security there. So
Okay.
The only people that were allowed to visit me were my immediate family. And my dad actually worked at the hospital, so I think I got the VIP treatment. But they were very good about, not letting anyone but law enforcement and my family come in to see me. But after I was released, I was kind of on my own, and they were like, okay, well, we have a temporary order, but then you're going to have to go and get the permanent one. And I was like, okay, well, how do I do that? Okay, well, you got to go do that. And having to navigate the whole system with no help.
And I think Samantha has some experience with that here in Bexar County, San Antonio, whatever. She has more experience with that than I do, but I know that a lot of the victims that we've worked with, it's very hard to get a protective order.
Did they issue you one when you went down to the Bexar County?
They did issue me one.
That's a surprise.
Yeah, so I felt very fortunate that I did get one. But he was still out. He was still out on the street.
Yeah, it's just a piece of paper.
It's literally just a piece of
Yeah.
paper, and if they do happen to violate it, and you call the cops and say, "Hey, I have a protective order," and he's in violation of it, all they got to do is leave,
Right.
and not be there when the cops get there, and so it's kind of pointless without actual backup from law enforcement.
So in your honest opinion, because everybody is different as far as, with people that we've worked with previously, what would you say was worse, the physical or the mental abuse?
The mental abuse, I think, took the longest to recover from. The physical abuse was bad and it was traumatic, but
Wounds heal.
those thoughts that go in your head over and over and over again, those don't fade as fast as the bruises.
Right.
Did you ever, after the night that he tried to kill you, did a thought ever go through your head about possibly going back?
No, because he told me if I ever get a hold of you again, I'm gonna finish what I started, and I had every reason to believe him.
So, from the time that he got out on bond, how long was it before you were even able to go to court?
2 years.
Wow.
2 years.
So he was out on bond.
He's out on bond. He's working.
Living his life.
Living his life. He actually married someone else during that time.
Okay.
And she stood up in court trying to defend him at his sentencing, trying to get him probation instead of going to prison. And I could not believe that. But he's out living his life. Meanwhile, I'm in hiding. For 2 years, I barely left the house. I was staying with my mom at the time. I couldn't work. I couldn't, I was a musician. You can't play the piano with 2 broken arms. So I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything. I did get really, really good counseling at Family Violence Prevention Services, which was, at that time, that was the only services that I knew about for domestic violence.
Right.
So I went there. They do have a lot of really great help there, but even they're limited. Victim services through the court, they give you a victim's advocate, but it's a lot of calling and leaving messages and asking questions, and they say, "Oh, well, you just have to wait until you go to court." It's like, okay, well, this is happening and that is happening. Oh, well, then just call the police. Okay, well, I called the police and they said to call victim services. And so you call victim services and they tell you to call.
So it's a runaround.
Exactly. And, when you have to go make a court appearance, when you have to go give your statement to SAPD or to, whatever law enforcement you're dealing with, there's no one there with you. You have to go by yourself or, have someone with you. And, when you're sitting in court, your abuser's right there looking at you. Mm-hmm. It's a really daunting process.
What was he given? What was his sentence? What did they give him?
He took a plea agreement, so he agreed to plead guilty in exchange for a 15-year sentence. If we had gone to trial, he probably could have gotten more time, but then he also could have gotten acquitted.
Right.
So the DA basically said, "Listen, we can get him to plead guilty, but we're going to give him this sentence." And so I was like, "Well, okay, if that's going to get him into prison and off the street, we'll agree to that."
Now, are you concerned with when he gets out? Because we're approaching that
Yes,
fairly soon.
He actually recently came up for parole, and I was fully expecting them to let him out because that's just what they do. And I was preparing myself for that for months, and they ended up denying his parole. I think the reason said because of the violent nature of his crime, that they felt like he should stay in longer. And I was so relieved. Even though it's been 10 years and I've had a lot of time to heal, I've had a lot of time to process, and I've kind of gotten on the other side of it. I have a wonderful marriage now to a man who loves me beyond measure.
And we're going to talk to your new husband too.
But the thought of him being back out, and what would happen if I was at the store and ran into him? What would happen if he somehow decided he wanted to track me down again? What would happen then?
And I'm going to ask about your protective order. How long was your did they give you a protective order for?
The protective order was for 2 years, and then it took 2 years to get him sentenced. And so then when he got sentenced, he was in prison, and then it lapsed. But he was in prison, so.
So we're going to have to go through the process again of
Yes.
getting protective order whenever he's let
Yes.
out.
Yes, and I'm kind of wary that they'll even grant it this time, because I'm like, well, it's been 10 years,
Right.
I feel like if they don't think there's an imminent threat at that time, and I was like, okay, but he's had 10 years to kind of sit in prison and think of all kinds of ways to get at me. So.
Exactly. And he said if he comes after you again, he's going to finish it. So.
And I've learned that you can't put anything past the perpetrator. Even if they seem like the greatest guy in the world, even if they're an upstanding member of the community, if they're an abuser and they've abused before, they'll do it again. And if they feel like they have nothing to lose, they can do anything.
Was there at any point during or after that you turned to substance abuse?
Not really. Not really. I felt like I was in such a fog for so long that having my mind clear for the first time was such a great thing. That I used that time to really work on myself and, just kind of live my best life in spite of what he tried to do to me.
Right.
So.
And I'm going to ask the final question for this part of our interview. Why do you want to be a part of Surviving the Intimate and Angel Eyes Foundation, which Surviving the Intimate, of course, has Project Rescue? Why do you think it's important, and what would you tell someone that's in a situation like you were in, maybe in the early stages, before it happened, before the death?
It is so important to share this story with as many people as possible. I think it's our duty as survivors, because we still are blessed to have our life, we still are blessed to have our voice, and we have to speak for all of our sisters who can't, all of our brothers who can't speak, who are still trapped, who are still suffering. There's so many who don't even know that there's help out there. They don't even know that what they're going through isn't okay. And the only way that they're gonna know is if we raise awareness. And it's so important for for the help to be there, because there's so much of this that is so isolating.
Right.
It's so isolating. You feel so alone. And it's scary. Even the people that are supposed to be there to help you, the police, the DA, the judge, the court, it's scary. It's scary walking into that courtroom. It's scary walking into that police station. And, having eyes on you, and they're, people are wondering what you're there for.
Right.
And so we have to have advocates. We have to have people that are on our side, that are fighting with us and for us. So. Hi, I'm Brandy, and this is my lovely husband, Saul.
Hi.
We're going to ask Saul and Brandy a couple of questions about what happens after the abuse, after you become a survivor.
So I'm just curious, when you first got into a relationship with Brandy, did she seem guarded, a little standoffish, or was she pretty easy to open up?
It was pretty easy, but I'm also pretty standoffish as well. Like, I don't open my guard right away. So maybe it worked.
How long into the relationship was it before she shared with you her experience from her previous relationship?
It was like our first date. We were on our first date, and he just casually asked me how I got the scar on my eye. And I was like, oh, well, that's kind of a story. But, this was now years after my incident, so I'd already shared my story 100 times. And so I was very comfortable, sharing that with him. And I remember he said, well, that's just the worst story I've ever heard. And I'm so sorry that happened to you. So he knew from get-go.
And how did you feel the first time that you heard that story? Did it kind of, how did it, I guess, like, what, how did you feel?
Yeah, I felt like it was the worst story I've ever heard.
Did it alter your reality?
No.
Did you feel different? Did you feel different towards her, and did you know anyone who had ever been through something like that? Did it make you feel more compassion for her, or did you feel sorry for her?
I guess maybe I felt like that she really did deserve the best out of her particular living situation, and that I was going to try and help to facilitate that.
Aw,
I love that.
I love you.
Did you ever, did it maybe, I don't know how to phrase this question. Couples argue. All couples will argue, right? So the first time that y'all had a disagreement, did, knowing what she had been through, does it make you a little bit more cautious or stop and think before you speak? Or were y'all able to just kind of communicate through an argument?
Yeah, just open communication.
Yeah, we've always been really open with each other. And it was very interesting because when we were first together, I was still having night terrors and nightmares every night, and I wouldn't even remember them. And we would wake up the next morning, and he was like, "You were having a lot of nightmares last night," and it was like every other night. And then I think we were living together about 6 months, and we realized that hadn't happened in a really long time.
Yeah, I noticed it. That, she would talk in her sleep. Seemed like with a kind of a frightened tone of voice. Moaning, frightened sounds coming, and I was like, well, what's going on? So I just kind of casually just like, hey babe, I'm here, and just wanted you to know you're having a nightmare right now, but I'm here. And then eventually she just stopped. So I was like, well, that's definitely progress as far as I'm
Absolutely.
concerned. And I just mentioned it to her because I thought it would be important.
Absolutely.
So when did you start feeling the most comfortable with each other? Was it right away, or was it
Pretty much right
We've
away.
always been pretty comfortable with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So y'all have been married now almost 2 years. We're about to
2
celebrate.
years next week, yeah.
Yay. How is life different for you now, Brandy, 2 years after y'all have been married, compared to what it was like when maybe y'all first met?
We're so much more comfortable with each other now. We're just like any other married couple. We have our little arguments and our little spats, but we always come together. And it was really a learning experience for me, because this was the first time that an argument didn't turn into violence. And this is the first time that, bad things happen and it wasn't the end of the world. And I wasn't being told all the time that I was too stupid or too fat or too, all those things that they say.
Right.
He would never hurt me. He would never, say anything that would be hurtful to me. We rib on each other, but, we mess with each other. But he's never said a malicious word to me, ever, in the entire time we've ever been together. He would never raise a hand to hurt me. He would cut his arm off before he would hurt me. And I think it's important for survivors to know that there is life after domestic violence, that you're not going to be alone forever. Don't believe your abuser when they tell you that no one is going to love you, that no one's going to want you, because that's not true. That's not true. The right person who loves you the way that you deserve to be loved is out there.
I kind of have a two-part question. So when you were sharing your testimony, I remember in one part you said in your previous relationship, if you were having a disagreement and you wanted to just walk out of the room, he would stop you from walking out of the room, or if you wanted to leave, he would say, "You're not leaving." Does your husband ever do that? If you
Never.
So when you first got together and you started having an argument where if you needed to take a breath, your husband would allow you to do so. Mm-hmm. Did that ever mess with you mentally, in that you kind of felt like, why isn't he chasing after me? Why, if I wanted to leave, he'd let me leave. Why doesn't he want to hold me here? Because for me, that was hard to accept in a healthy relationship because all I knew was love as somebody stopping me from leaving.
Yeah, I had to learn how to, like, if he wasn't freaking out about something, why aren't you freaking out about this? Why don't you care about this? And I had to realize, well, not everybody is going to freak out because you spill something. Not everybody's going to freak out because you burned dinner. Not everybody's going to freak out because you forgot to do something. I'm not going to be in trouble, so to speak, because of this, that, or the other. It's just a healthy relationship doesn't have the same dynamics that an abusive relationship does. And so what was, quote, normal in the abusive relationship, I learned really isn't normal. It's not how a healthy relationship works.
And so I'm going to tag off of what she said. How did you feel when she was going through her emotional breakdowns because she didn't understand what was going on or didn't understand what a healthy relationship was supposed to be like?
I think I was multiple feelings of maybe confusion, sympathy, just being the listener in the situation. Very quickly, as I've matured, learned how to just sit and listen. And really that's been the best thing for Brandy, is I'm not necessarily telling her what she should do. I'm just saying, look, I'm listening to what you're saying and I'm understanding what you're saying to me. I don't have those experiences obviously, but I'm trying to empathize.
Right.
He's definitely the calm in the storm. Like, I'm the hurricane. I'm like, ah! And he's like, no, it's okay. Let's just breathe. Let's just listen. And sometimes I'm like, no, you need to freak out with me. And he's like, he's just not gonna, he's always just calm and cool. And it's very much what I need.
To have an equal balance.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Well, thank y'all so much for being with us today. We really appreciate it. So you're a great man, wonderful man, and I know that it's very hard because I'm a Brandy, so I get it. And Dawn has had to go through a whole lot with me, and so I completely get it. And it takes a strong man to be able to stand there, or a strong partner to be able to stand there and help your partner through the emotional issues that they're going through.
Thanks.
Brandy, I want to ask you about some questions through your period of time of horror. Just, did music help you get through that time?
Absolutely. I obviously I had 2 broken arms, so I couldn't play right away. But I remember telling the physical therapist, they initially had told me, well, we're going to make it so you can button your shirt. We're going to make it so you can write your name. And I was like, okay, but you need to make it so I can play Chopin again. And they were like, what?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, you don't understand. I need to have my hands back so I can play again. And so that was really the driving force for the physical healing, I think, was getting back to my music. And, even though I couldn't play, I was still going and meeting with my piano teacher who, we've been together since I was a child, and I still go see her to this day. And she was very, she was just really, okay, well, you need to start thinking about what you want to play because you're going to be very busy. Like, she was not even acknowledging the fact that my arms were broken at that time. She was not even accepting that, the doctors were saying I may not play again. She was just like, no, we're just going to start thinking about what music you're going to start working on. And there was never a question of, will I play again? It was, yes, you will play again.
Did that help you get yourself into an act of playing?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I feel like that helps whenever it comes to just saying, I can't do it. No, you switch that mindset around and say, I'm doing it.
Yes.
There's no way around it. It's going to happen.
Yeah, this is just what we're going to do. And I think having that creative outlet for just to process all of these feelings that are happening, the trauma and all of that, but also the mourning period that happens. This was someone that I did love. This was a relationship that I got into thinking that this was the one, and there's a mourning period that happens when that ends, even if it is a traumatic ending. And so being able to put those feelings into my music, and also being able to help others, teaching children how to play the piano is like my favorite thing to do in the world. And so being able to share that with others and share that with the children again was very, very important to me.
When it comes to helping the kids, do you ever have stories of your own that you can see from them that they're struggling from?
I do see it sometimes, mainly with my preteens and teenagers. They go through stuff when they're getting to that age, and so some of them are experiencing bullying at school. Some of them are experiencing their own first dating relationships and trying to navigate what's okay, what's not okay. Some of them are having struggles at home, and I always want to impart to my students that this is a safe place for them to talk about anything that they want. They play their music, and we spend a lot of time just talking with them. So.
Yeah, it's a very tender age. And the fact that you share that with them, I think that's really powerful. Whenever it comes to somebody that is trying to better themselves, and kids at that age, I think art is very important.
Yes, it is. And especially with my older teens and my young adults, and the little ones too. I mean, they see the scars on my hands, and they say, "Miss Brandy, what happened to your hand?" And with the babies, I don't share. I just tell them, Miss Brandy had an accident and broke her hand. But with my older ones, I do feel comfortable sharing that with them, and it kind of helps them to know that there's someone close to them who's been through something. So.
Yeah. And with those conversations, has there been one of those conversations that reached to a teenager that was also being abused?
Not yet. I haven't had that experience yet, and I hope I never do. I hope I never have to hear from one of my children that they're going through that, because I wouldn't wish that on anyone. But I hope that they would know that if they were going through that they could come and tell me, and I would help them.
Yes. Well, Brandy, thank you so much. I really appreciate your story and sharing your story with us.